I am here to tell you, KNIME data scientists are not on the dark side. The Master Jedi, Phil, will explain. My most important message to you today, Michael, I am not your father.
As everybody knows, I have to have some fun. But I'm here with a really serious topic, so thanks for everyone being here. I have a question. How many of you have heard of the EU GDPR regulation? Good, that's good. How many of you are in organizations using data about individuals, about customers? How many of you think that this regulation has nothing to do with you? Might be wrong. In my opinion, this is the strongest law that has ever come out about data protection. And in the end, it is going to be a good law. The problem is there's some work to do. It affects anyone who is collecting personal data about individuals. Now, for those of us in the EU, who is in a company resident in the EU? Yeah? We know this already a little bit. We've already got data privacy. This is a lot more of the same. How many of you, though, are in companies outside of the EU? Yeah, the problem is this new regulation, this new law, could be effective, could belong to you as well. Okay, here's the thing. You have to follow the law. If you contain information about individuals who are either EU citizens or EU residents, for example, I am American, but I am an EU resident, then this law applies to you. Why is it so important? Because it is really expensive if you get sued. 4% of your worldwide turnover maximum fees. So it's important. I would read no website whatsoever. This is like the latest hyped buzzword. Have you talked to any vendor that hasn't mentioned GDPR? Oh, we have a GDPR solution. That is the only place you should read. That is the real EU law. It is in many languages, and you can read it. Okay, I'm going to go through a couple of things that I think affect us as data scientists. And there's lots and lots and lots of terms in this particular one. But the terms, you can all read later. The most important one is this one here. They call it automatic data, or automatic decision-making, or automatic profiling. Sounds like a fancy new title, doesn't it? Maybe IBM will use it to start selling. But what it actually means behind the scenes is the following. When they say automatic decision-making, what they actually mean is what we do. The process of making decisions automatically with a computer. Machine learning, decision science. Hey, this is our law. This is our job. This is automatic profiling. So what I'd like to do is show you some of the things that the law affects when we are doing our day-to-day work on customer data. Now, there is a law about that, but what does it affect? There's 4 topics that they talk about that we need to take care of. And there are those 4 there. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you KNIME workflows to help you with each one of those topics. Sound good? Very, very quickly we'll hit it. So here we are with a workflow. Down below, everybody knows it. Above, I have 4 different workflows that I'm using to help satisfy some of the documentation requirements in the law. So this is our automatic profiling at the bottom and the 4 techniques at the top. Let me go ahead and just walk very quickly through a couple of them. The very first one, I think, may be the most important. You see, in the new law, there's a rule about data that we should not be using in our modeling. They call it special categories. We would call it discrimination. Look at the types of things: the race, ethnic, political, religious, genetic data, biometric data. If you're going to use that sort of information in your modeling, you need very, very, very special permission. It's not to say that you can't do it, but to remember the old thing when big data came out? Oh, let's just collect everything and we'll use all of it. Can't do that anymore. We have to think in advance about what we're going to do. So if we have this sort of data, what do we have to do? Well, the first thing we want to do, of course, is go into our workflows and do something simple like this. Every time we're going to use data that might contain discrimination, the first thing we want to do is maybe just use a little web portal or a little wrapped meta node to go in and say things like this. What fields of information do I have? Are any of those fields discriminatory fields? Now, I am using a modified adults data set. The good thing about the adults data set from the US is it contains discriminatory data. It contains information about race, which in the EU we can't use anymore. So I'm first doing a tagging exercise where I've tagged the information. I'm going to identify those fields of information. What I do then is a second part of the law. They're very worried about what they call pseudo-discrimination. In other words, are there any other fields of information that might reflect that information? Now, hey, for us, that's just machine learning, isn't it? I've done something very simple here. I've just used a simple linear correlation, but you could use any supervised technique you want to go through and make sure that there's no correlation or no link between the discriminatory information and the non-discriminatory. In my example, in the adults data set, that's why I love this data set, there is actually something that's very, very synced. You see, in certain parts of the United States, zip code equals race. That's true, isn't it, Dean? Regrettably, zip code equals race. So if you were going to use the zip code or the postal code in your model, you'd have to be very careful because it actually might represent something that's considered to be discriminatory. Once again, this isn't a big topic for KNIME. We know how to pull the things together. I go through and I make some choices. Not only then can I decide to use or not use that information, the most important thing is I write it out. I've stored the information that says, here are the decisions I went through. Okay, and you can see what I'm doing here. At each step, I'm putting a little extra decision and documentation place in. Okay, the next step, anonymize. A huge part of this law has to do with the difference between personally identified and anonymized data. Now, we all know that there's lots and lots and lots of techniques for anonymization. There's pluses, there's negatives, all sorts of things. I'm not going to go into the details here. You know that much better than I do. But let us say that we want to use anonymized data, or at least go through the process of deciding whether anonymized data will satisfy our requirement. So we might want to do something like this. We have data coming in. We choose some sort of technique to anonymize. In my case, I'm using a simple distance matrix and finding nearest neighbors and then doing some scrambling. Thank you, Tobias and Iris, for helping with the example. You could use anything you want. And I'm not going to go into a debate about which one's better or worse, but you use your technique. Here's the most important things. Number one, from a data scientist perspective, we want to test the quality of the model. We want to be able to say, okay, is the anonymized model as good as a real model on the real data? How does that make sense? And we all know how to do that. That's just normal, good KNIME stuff. But at the same time, we also, according to the law, have to give some sort of indication that you can't reverse anonymize, that we can't, through the anonymization, get back. Now, there's, once again, lots of techniques down in the corner that you can use for that. Choose your favorite technique. Just because I could, this adults table, to check, could I find an original record by going through the anonymize, I actually loaded it up on Google and did a one-to-one cross-check all combinations. It was over 1 billion combinations, and that's one of the cool things about KNIME. I just flipped it up onto AWS and let it run. But you can use any technique you want. My point here is not to talk about techniques, it's to talk about process and packaging. Now, there's another law, and this one starts getting tricky, and this is the one where people like Dean and Michael start going, ah. According to the law, you have to be able to explain your model to a layperson. And we all know, as soon as we go to some of the really complex things, that gets tricky. But the interesting thing is, the law doesn't say we have to explain it to them mathematically. We just have to give them transparency as to what's going on. So how might that look? Well, for example, here I've got one where in my model, I was using a random forest, and that created my model. Then I, in this case, am using a feature selection loop to basically go back and simply indicate what were the most important fields, what were the most important features that were used in the model. So I'm not actually using the model, I'm just using it as a way of documentation. Once again, we can debate this, but what's interesting is, even for neural nets and deep learning and things, there are some techniques out there that start surfacing relative importance. And I personally think that that's going to be enough. Once again, one of the big things we're doing is we're documenting the fact that we've done this. So explanation. So all of these things that we can do to help our organizations. The last is the most important, documentation. Every individual has the right to come to your organization and say, tell me about the data you have and tell me what you're doing. But look what we've just done. Because we've dropped these 4 sections into our workflow, and if we're using them in a consistent and documented way, we have all the information. We can go through and say, here's the information that's using, here's the people that have access, here's exactly what's happening for compliance things, here's the tests we did before we actually went on to do our work. For example, here's even a picture of the diagram. Now, whether we give all of this information to the end consumer or not is up to you, but the important thing is it's documented. And what about this explanation? Well, here's some of the information that I went through when I made a decision to say, yes, we had discriminatory data, and I am not using it. So all of this sort of documentation thing. When it comes to explaining models, what I love is there are some fantastic examples out there, particularly with some of the Java libraries and the visualization stuff. For example, for an internal use, we could actually take the results and say, here are the fields I'm using in my model, here's their relative importance, so that an executive can say, oh, those fields make sense. Our data protection officer can say, yes, with those fields, we're not going to get in trouble. The documentation is there. What are we going to do for the external user? Well, once again, the data is all there. So we can decide with our legal teams, with our data protection officers, how we're going to go about taking that information and packaging it and presenting it. Why is this so important to me? Well, mostly because of the fact that if you don't do this, how many of you have talked to your data protection officer already? Yeah, a lot less hands. When does this law come into effect? 25th of May. How come we're doing all this customer data stuff on our data protection officer? The danger is if you don't take a proactive approach, then your data protection officer will come to you and say, stop, because we're in violation of the law. So what I'm trying to do is give you some tips and some tricks. What I've just shown you, this is absolutely not new data science. This is using good, solid KNIME to package a lot of the things that I think can help us do to help our organizations become compliant. You can totally automate it, as you can imagine. All of these things lend themselves very well to sub-workflows or REST microservices. If you've got the KNIME server, you could come up with a standard set that all of your data mining team basically drops them in place before they go through making production models. That whole documentation process, because in my opinion, the law does not stop us from doing good things, either for our organizations or for our customers. We just have to get much better at documenting it. So my conclusion, the presentation is available immediately. There's a white paper that's written. I just have to have Heather cross-check the spelling. We've got a few examples that will be on the example server very quickly, but I hope this has given you some ideas, because you need to be proactive. You need to go to your data protection officer and help them through this. For us, this is not rocket science. We have the tools with KNIME. It's up to you to do it. Thank you very much.